welcome to MTOK News, bringing you information of the Christian world. So for our first story tonight, a Reno church is requesting the Supreme Court to weigh in on their case over whether a government has the authority to restrict or limit the size of religious gatherings in houses of worship. Now, 19 other states have recently joined this battle in this church near Reno, Nevada, because they believe that this case is going to bring clarity across the country about the state government's rights and the authority that they have over religious organizations, or whether they do or they don't. Now, this will, again, affect these other states as well. And hopefully, with the Supreme Court's decision, will create a national understanding of these lower courts on how they can affect houses of worship in any way, shape, or form. In other news, the Baptist National Convention, which is coming up in June, has 4 players. We have 4 people running for the president of the Southern Baptist Convention. Now, unfortunately, last year, due to the COVID restrictions, they had to cancel theirs. However, they are planning for one this year in the same time frame in June. The 4 people that are running in this election is Albert Mueller, who is the president of the Theological Seminary for the Southern Baptists, Georgia pastor Mike Stone, Randy Adams, the executive director of the Northwest Baptist Convention, and Pastor Ed Litton of the First Baptist Church of North Mobile, Indiana. Now, this election will occur in the Southern Baptist Convention in Nashville in June of this year. Now we're going to go to John with our international report.
All right, well, thank you for those stories, Dustin, and I will now go to the international report. So, these are our top stories for this week, for the past couple of weeks, and we will keep you guys updated as they continue to go on. So, first, there's a report out of China. England, Britain and China. So, over the past century or so, China's been accused of genocide due to the rounding up of people they claim to be political problems. China has repeatedly violated human rights, and this is under the communist government. The government has recently cracked down more on Christians, particularly. Churches that aren't forced to close are closely monitored and forced to advertise with communist ideas, and Christians have also been targeted during the COVID outbreak. So there is a call in the British government to stand against such persecution. A new amendment has been proposed on January 19th into a trading treaty that would no longer allow Britain free trade with countries it deems guilty of genocide. This bill will deny the trade to any country that is determined by Britain to have violated human rights through such things as persecution or genocide. This would allow Britain to determine genocide on its own, by their own terms, instead of those of the international community. It is hoped that by denying trade to such countries deemed guilty, it could start to bring about change. In the past, such issues have been deemed irrelevant. So, for instance, in the past, this isn't China's first time persecuting Christians or other political prisoners. And in the past, countries have mainly ignored it, seeing it as irrelevant to the matter at hand, such as trade or things like that. Some of the people in Britain seek to bring change to this, so it is hoped that this could bring about change by denying them trade. So they can no longer just ignore it, sweep it under the rug, and say, oh, well, it's not the problem of China. Okay. Our next report comes from India. Now, this is where more anti-conversion laws have been passed. Last week, I did talk about how India has passed several anti-conversion laws in a few of its states. Madhya Pradesh has joined that list. They have passed a law with the intention of preventing Hindus from changing religion. It is noted as the harshest law against conversion to be passed in India so far. Some speculate this may lead to a ban on Christian evangelism throughout the country entirely. The number of states with anti-conversion laws currently sits at 9. In Madhya Pradesh, suspects may be arrested without warrant and held without bail. Worse, the burden falls on them to prove their innocence. Instead of innocent until proven guilty, they are guilty until proven innocent. Any within the state who wish to change their faith must have official permission 60 days ahead of time. Failure to do so may result in a prison sentence up to 10 years, as well as a fine up to 50,000 rupees. This law was passed on January 9th, following Uttar Pradesh, who imposed a very similar law in November of last year. Recently in Uttar Pradesh, 4 Christians were arrested after distributing COVID relief aid. They deny asking anyone for money or to change their faith. On the surface, this law is treated as a way to prevent conversion by force. However, Christian relief aids are treated as bribery. Also, any warning about divine judgment is seen as coercion. The law written says this. So it says, no person shall convert or attempt to convert either directly or otherwise any other person by use of misrepresentation, allurement, use of threat, of force, undue influence, coercion, or marriage, or by any other fraudulent means. Now, this may seem like no big deal on the surface, and in fact it sounds pretty good. But recent studies have shown that laws like this simply fuel intolerance and extremism. Many conversions have come to the Dalit class, those seen as the untouchables by the Indian religion, by Hinduism, and viewed as destined to serve menial labor tasks, such as cleaning toilets or sweeping streets. This class has responded highly to the message of Christianity through love and acceptance, and Hindu nationalists have begun promoting an idea of Hindutva, so they believe that this is unacceptable. This idea was briefly touched on in my last report. It does state that to be Indian is to be Hindu, and nothing else will be tolerated. Violence towards Christians has risen as a result of this extremist view. More Christians were attacked last year by violent mobs than the previous year. So, for instance, September saw 3 villages of Christians attacked in Chhattisgarh. I do apologize if I've mispronounced anything. If there's anyone here who knows how to pronounce these correctly, please let me know. Anyway, this is another state that passed anti-conversion laws. This rise of violence has been going on since 2014, when the BJP came to power. That is the Bharatiya Janata Party. Specifically since May of 2019, when Narendra Modi was elected Prime Minister. Now, Narendra Modi is a part of this party, and this has fomented the violence and intolerance towards Christians. So, as always, I would like to remind our viewers that we should pray for all the individuals involved in these incidents. We should pray for our Christian brethren to be protected and that conversion to Christ will spread. And we also need to remember to pray for the persecutors, that they will see the error of their ways and that they will turn to Christ. And then here is another story. This is a little more positive to lighten your mood. So this one comes out of Israel. Archaeologists digging in Tayyiba, also called Teba, a village located in the Jezreel Valley, the northern part of the Jezreel Valley, have found the remains of a church dating back 1,500 years to the Byzantine churches. So, they found a stone lintel with a blessing written in Greek that begins, Christ born of Mary. Now, interestingly, archaeologists have also unearthed a series of mosaic pavements. I won't go into too much detail about them because I couldn't really look at the pictures, so I couldn't tell you guys what we're looking at here. But I will talk about the lintel. So according to Leah Desegni, again, I do apologize greatly if I am mispronouncing your name, a researcher of archaeology at Hebrew University of Jerusalem, the carving was probably made for the dedication of the church. So here's what it reads in full. Christ born of Mary, this work of the Most High, of the most God-fearing and pious Bishop Theodosius and the miserable Thomas, was built from the foundation. Whoever enters should pray for them. So it is clear that the structure is a church and not a monastery, since churches had these greetings and these blessings, and monasteries didn't really have those. Theodosius was one of the first Christian bishops of the area. He was archbishop with authority over Bet-Shean, which is the area where this was found. Of note, this is one of the first Byzantine churches dating to this time. Previously, one was unearthed dating back to the Crusaders. It is believed that the building material was reused at a later date. So this is an interesting story. I just thought you guys might like to know, what's going on with archaeology and everything. We will keep up to date with more diggings that go on in Israel, and we'll let you guys know. And lastly, I would like to sponsor our organization of the week, and that is Iran Alive Ministries. This is a ministry dedicated to sharing the gospel with Iranians. Its efforts have led to many walking away from the oppressive treatment of the Islamic State and giving their lives to Christ. We do ask that our viewers take a look at this. This is not a sponsorship. We were not paid to say this, but we do ask that you guys take a look at it. And without further ado, we will go back to Dustin in the studio.
Thank you, John, for that amazing report. Now to our top news. On January 15th, Faithful America, a Christian organization, started a petition to have Franklin Graham, who was the CEO and president of both Samaritan's Purse and Billy Graham Evangelical Association, fired or convince him to resign. According to Faithful America, this petition came after Franklin's support of Donald Trump and his belief of a stolen election. This came after the deadly riots in the American Capitol a week earlier. One of the condemning points was that in a tweet, Franklin Graham brushed off the attack on the Capitol when he said, "We knew he had flaws when he ran for office in 2016, going even further to say that the religious right should be held accountable for the deadly dishonesty." Now, this is not Faithful America's first petition against Franklin Graham. There was one occurred last year when Franklin Graham arranged a rally in support, which he invited President Donald Trump. Many believe that this was a political move. Some don't believe this is a political move. Now, I do want to advise everyone that Faithful America is not being endorsed by this channel. However, it is just being used as an informational source. No endorsement involved. Now to John with our media report.
All right, well, thank you, Dustin. We are going to go now to the media reports for this week. So, we're going to cover, here is your top 10 Christian songs for the chart of this week. Keep in mind, I am just reading the numbers, okay? So, number 10 is Jericho by Andrew Ripp. Number 9 is Battle Belongs by Phil Wickham. I hope I'm not mispronouncing any names. Number 8 is There Was Jesus by Zach Williams and Dolly Parton. Number 7 is Fires by Jordan Sear. Number 6 is Say I Won't by Mercy Me. Number 5 is You Say by Lauren Daigle. Number 4 is Good God Almighty by Crowder. Note, this actually just came out on January 15th of this year, and it's already at number 4, so good for it. Number 3 is Graves into Gardens by Elevation Worship. Number 2 is Truth Be Told by Matthew West. And your number 1 for this week, as of this week in January 2021, is Less Like Me by Zach Williams. I actually just heard this song. It's great. So we will now go back to Dustin.